All right, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Olga and I are excited to talk all things loyalty and all things current loyalty, future of loyalty, etc. Here in a couple minutes. We will give the room about 60 seconds to fill up here before we get going. So,
Yeah. Sure,
so
I
Olga,
can.
you're telling me.
Yeah, is
Go
there
ahead. Go
anybody
ahead.
there? Because I can't see if anybody
There
came
are
up.
a few people. Yes, we do
Okay,
have a few.
there
Don't
is somebody
worry.
in there.
We're
Okay.
not speaking to an empty room. We do have a
I
few
mean,
people
that's
here.
okay. That's okay too. There's
Yeah.
going to be a recording, but
Yeah, there you go. I was just about to say, throw it in the
yeah,
chat if you're here, so that
yeah, that's
Olga knows
awesome
that.
that you exist.
There you go.
It's not a black hole.
Yeah. Say hello in the chat. Say where you're calling in from, where you're joining us from. If the weather is nice, if you ate something memorable over the weekend, if you did something special for
Yep.
Mother's Day, it's all
Okay.
welcome in the chat. So,
Awesome.
so Olga, you're going to be in town when do you get to Chicago?
I'm leaving tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, so
Got it.
midday, um, somewhere around that. So I'm in Central as well. I'm in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited about Meg. I'm excited about going to the NRA.
Yeah.
It'll be cool to see everybody again and enjoy some not very hot weather.
Yes. Yes. The NRA show is like the Super Bowl. It's just so many people, and so I shared an Uber with somebody last year. He told me, he's like, I'm from El Salvador. I only come to Chicago for the NRA show. I don't travel for that. He's a chef at a hotel, and he's like, the only reason I'm here is to buy a new toaster for the new hotel we're opening. I was like, this is awesome. It's like I
Okay,
never get to, yeah, like you never get to have those moments serendipitously otherwise. So that was nice.
yeah. Well, last year
Uh,
at the NRA, I ran into a couple of people I haven't seen for probably 15 years. And they were also shopping for some equipment for their kitchen, but I was working with them. They were one of my franchisees in Mexico, and it was like a
yeah.
moment of total shock when we ran into each other on the floor.
Very nice. Very nice. I love it. I love it. Yeah. It's like I always say, like it's always a good moment for, especially for people on my team that are going for the first time, where it's just like, just sneak away and go outside the tech pavilion,
Yeah,
because like you will truly learn how diverse and interconnected this industry is.
yeah,
Which is amazing. So
cool.
awesome. So we'll get rolling here. Abhinav Kapur, co-founder and CEO of Bicky. We're a customer data platform for restaurants, helping restaurants measure the incrementality of their marketing, menu, and ops decisions. Olga Lopategui, who I will you do your yeah, I will let you do. I know I feel like I can pronounce your last name because I'm a big soccer fan, and there was a soccer coach whose name was Julian Lopategui. So I'm like, I feel like I can maybe get it. You'll probably correct me here in a second, um, but Olga and I have known each other for about 5 or 6 years now at this point.
Mhm.
And Olga, you've always stood out as a shining example of what thoughtful, strategic, analytical rigor looks like when it comes to evaluating the success of restaurant loyalty and loyalty campaigns. And you put out this fantastic study on the current state as well as the future of loyalty. Before we dive into the contents of that report and go through everything that you've uncovered in your more than 50 conversations with restaurant execs, I would love for you to just give your intro, your background, and we will jump into it from there.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Abhinav, and thank you for the compliments. So my name is Olga Lopategui.
Oh,
You is
close,
silent, and my
close.
guess that Abhinav, you probably learned it from a bunch of Americans that cannot pronounce Spanish names, anyways. So I can't blame you. That's how they tried to do it the first time around. So my
Okay. I knew
last
you were
name.
going to correct me, so
Yeah, I
yeah.
was gonna do it. It's okay.
All right.
I
It's
get
good.
over
It's
this
good.
quickly. So my
Yeah.
last name is Puerto Rican. My husband is from Puerto Rico. The accent, which may be confusing, is Russian. So I'm originally from Moscow, Russia. So that's where all of this kind of mixes up together. So I run a
Yeah.
company called Restaurant Loyalty Specialists, and we do exactly what it sounds like. We help restaurant chains with their loyalty programs, and we are effectively an agency. We do anything from loyalty strategy, is my program working, what should it look like,
Yep.
how should we fix it, to in platform execution. So if you just don't have enough hands on the keyboard to get your campaigns going, get your segmentation done, so we assign a specialist to help you with that, and anything in between. We do some analytics work. with loyalty programs. And when we do get a chance to work with a client that has BK in place, it's always a pleasure. It's so much easier to get things done when you have BK. And I imagine most people on this webinar are already BK clients. But I'm really, really happy that more and more people are adopting the CDP because it just
Appreciate
helps
it.
so much.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you likewise for the kind words. And now that you've corrected me on live television, I will never get your last name wrong. So, well, awesome. Can you, before we, again, jump into sort of I think some of the interesting nuances of the report, and I'll share some slides here, the specific callouts that I thought that were super interesting. Can you zoom out a little bit and talk about, like, why did you want to do this survey? What was compelling to you and what motivated you? Because you've been running RLS a long time. You've been in the game a long time. Why did you feel like now was the right time to kick off this survey?
Yeah, so I've been running RLS. It's going to be 9 years at the end of this year. So I've been around for a while. During those years, I've spoken to multiple people running multiple brands. Very often, same people moving from one brand to each other. Experiences in different companies. And what I felt, there is a disconnect between what we hear in presentations at conferences when people talk about their loyalty programs, how they're performing, how are they getting measured, and the reality that I'm hearing from the clients. So I wanted to get a sense based on the folks that I know in the industry, what is their experience? What has their experience been throughout their career in the recent years? What works in loyalty, what doesn't, and other differences between how large companies versus small companies approach it, types of companies, QSR, full service, fine dining, etc. So I just wanted to get a sense of, what's the reality? Because what we hear in presentations on stage is usually, the best of the best, and it's a glamorized experience, and it's how it probably should be, but not always how it is. So that was the idea behind the research, and I specifically wanted it to be a qualitative conversation and not a survey, because there's value to surveys where you do multiple choice questions, but it doesn't capture the nuance, and unless it's done very, very well, it kind of skews the answers towards what you want to hear. And most of us are not that deep into consumer research to structure it completely diligently and perfectly.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good counterpoint, because interesting, like, we did our loyalty survey of different CMOs and VP of marketing, digital directors of loyalty around the same time as you. So it was like a nice counterpoint. And I think what we'll find as we dive into the results here is, actually, I feel like our conclusions weren't that different and weren't so much at odds with each other. But to your point, you unpacked, just having conversations with people, you were able to unpack a lot more of the nuance behind.
There's more color to it, so it doesn't just reconfirm your point of view of the world. And I think we mostly know what that view of the world is, but just understanding why, I think, is really important, and how we get forward.
How big is the gap between what you heard on stage and what the reality was on the ground, or what you were hearing from clients? I guess, how big is that gap historically, and has it shrunk at all, or is there still just this giant gap between kind of best of the best and where most folks are at?
I think what we hear on stage is absolutely exists, and it's real. It's not real for most people. So when you hear a presentation about how Starbucks or Chipotle or McDonald's manages their loyalty program, or cruise lines manage their loyalty programs, it's all real. It's just real for a very small number of folks out there. So I think that confirms it for me. And so the question is, do you want, if you are one of those smaller companies that are not on the right place yet, do you want to bridge the gap? Are you willing to stay behind on this? Because that's a valid answer too, like, not to be at the forefront of everything. And if you want to get there, so what do you work on first? What makes the most sense for you? And how do you get there into the future?
Yeah. And I guess, is the biggest delta between those two, no pun intended implying delta, but like, is the biggest gap, I guess, no pun intended implying gap, I guess, but is the biggest difference, there we go, between those two? Is it just scale and resources and people? Is that like the biggest way to think about where, when you see some of these mega brands on stage talking about all the things they're doing in loyalty and the innovation that they're doing, and where most restaurants are, where your clients are, is it as simple as just saying, look, well, they have tons of resources and they have capital and they have teams of people, whereas the average restaurant brand does not. Is that the right way to think about it, or is there something else happening?
I think it's one of the main reasons behind the gap. But I think what I found particularly interesting was that the enterprise brands were most satisfied with their loyalty program and CRM program performance. And what I've discovered is that the folks that put resources behind it, whether it's cost of technology or analytical resources or marketing resources, um, the brands that are able to measure the result are most happy with their investment. And the brands that just invest into the technology but don't utilize it fully, don't put the resources to use it the most, they are the ones that constantly questioning, is it doing anything for me? Is there value to this? So to me, that was the biggest gap. And I think it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to have the beautiful system run by multiple agencies or to have something that just like barely works in automatic. There's plenty of middle ground to play in. And somehow a lot of brands just don't get there because it's yet one more thing to do. And until you can prove that it's effective, nobody wants to spend time on it, or not many people want to spend time on it.
Yeah, and my mental model too of like how restaurant folks operate right now is you're basically like you're short on time, you're short on money, you're short on people, and you're in a highly competitive environment. There's more competition than ever. There are seemingly more causes as to why, or more potential causes as to why traffic could be, I won't say flat or down, let's just say below your own expectations or your board's expectations.
I think flat or down is probably realistic.
Yeah, I feel like what I've been saying recently is like, I feel like we're on the third year running of flat is the new up, of being told that. And, it felt like we were turning the corner until weather and now, and, macro and inflation and all this other stuff that's been emerging to start the year. But my mental model is just like, you have all these things that you could focus on or could be causing the issue. It's hard to it's hard to, one, know where to start, or two, even like shift priorities. To your point, when maybe the ROI or the payoff is still unclear. From where most folks sit today. So okay, great. So we jumped right into it, but like one housekeeping note, Olga and I will chat for about 20 to 30 more minutes, and then we'll leave plenty of room for questions at the end. So use the chat button, use the little questions button, drop them in there. If you have if something Olga says or I say sparks your interest and you want to drop a question in during our conversation, I'll read questions during. Like, we don't have to necessarily wait till the end here. So we want to be as interactive as possible. Yeah, go ahead, Olga.
So the full research piece that we've put together at RLS is available to download on our website. Shoot me a note, I'll send you a download link, because I think we haven't hooked it up to the main page yet.
Okay.
But basically just like let me know if you want to get the full, I think it's like a 70-page report. But they're not super dense slides. I think they're a fun read for me, but people's opinions may differ on that.
We're going to show some of them today, so everybody's going to get a taste of what the full report is like. I guarantee, and the ones that I've picked here are what I found the most compelling to me. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most. There were plenty that I left on the cutting room floor because we wanted this to be 45 minutes, not 2 hours and 45 minutes, which I could gladly. I don't know about you, Olga, but I could spend 2 hours and 45 minutes at least talking through all your results.
I spent 50+ hours on the interviews. So.
That's right. Okay, I'm going to jump into it now. Let's do quick. I don't know how to do presentation mode on Canva, so we're just going to leave it this way. But can you see my screen, Olga? This is the first time I've done it where like I actually have screen sharing, a buddy. So you can see my screen, I'm assuming here, Olga?
Yeah, I can see a screen. Like,
sweet.
There's got to be a presentation mode somewhere.
Yeah, I figured it out. I put it in presentation mode. Excellent. So why don't we just kick off? Why don't you tell us about the survey, who you spoke with, the different sort of groups, fast casual QSR versus casual dining, just high level. Let's walk through that first and foremost.
That kind of captures it all. So it was 50-ish, like I think it was 53 people that I spoke to. For this, like roughly 45-minute interviews each, following a conversation guide, but obviously people digress and you end up with a sidebar conversations that also surface interesting things. So senior leadership roles, so director and above, director of loyalty, digital strategy, people touching loyalty programs, a couple CEOs on there, a handful of CMOs, but mostly senior VPs, directors of loyalty and digital. Good spread between casual dining, fast casual, QSR, and I think Abhinav, I shared the numbers with you on the split.
You did.
But I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it's a good mix. There was only one fine dining company that I spoke to, but mostly QSR, fast casual, casual dining. Mostly national. Some of the brands had international presence, but mostly focused on their US experience. I was in the international marketing before I started RLS, so it's near and dear to my heart, but wasn't interviewed here. And then we had a solid mix of franchised and the equity and kind of blonde operations. So I feel like it more or less represents the industry, but with a big caveat is that these are the people that would respond to my call for an interview. So this is not a fully representative sample of the universe. So
I think the biggest chunk from an operational scale standpoint was 50 to 500. Was that your definition too?
So
that
under 50 are kind of under 50 are small, over 500 are enterprise, and then a large range of medium in between. Which is it's interesting how similar like 50, 60 unit brands behave to 400 unit brands.
Yes.
It looks like once you hit over like 5, 6, 700, that's when they start acting big.
Yeah. And it's interesting to your comment on how the 50, 60 unit brands are similar to the 400 unit brands. I at least in my experience, it could be that the team size isn't even that different between the two, right? You could have these multi-hundred unit brands that operate still with a team of 3 or 4, essentially.
Yep. But they do have to mature to get to the next stage.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So obviously, there's 4 big buckets here. I think actually, before we jump into this, let's talk about the 4 big buckets that you focused on. They are personalization, ROI of loyalty, current state of the tech stack, and then the future, right? Is that the right way to think about the 4 big buckets here?
I think so. Yeah. I'm distracted by the screening call.
I know. I know. I'm trying to figure out how to turn it off on my phone. There we go. There it's gone. And I put on Do Not Disturb, so no more distractions. Go for it.
So there was a few themes that we picked up that I thought would be interesting to explore. Personalization was a big one for me. Because everybody wants to personalize, and there's so much conversation, and particularly in conferences and industry events, about personalization. And my experience with personalization is that we typically take our clients from like no personalization or almost no to just a little bit. There are some clients who work with we get pretty far down the road, but it's surprisingly difficult, notwithstanding all the talk about how you should do it. Like actually getting it done seems to be hard for the brands, and I wanted to understand why and what's the limitation. So everybody agrees that we need to personalize our communications to the guests. That's like settled, but the brands don't think the medium and smaller brands don't think that they can afford to personalize at the level they want. And that mostly is a function of technology and human resources that the brands have. So there's an expectation of this one-on-one or small batch personalization, but it runs into a lot of limitations. So figuring out how do you personalize in a way that is impactful but is not overwhelming for your team, that seems to be one of the big challenges for the brands.
Yeah, and that's literally like. And when we say the personalized to the level that we want, I think we have it here where we talk about product propensity. And that literally, hey, someone is lapsed. It's been X number of days since their last visit, and we want to put an acai bowl offer in front of them if that's what they tend to order. But if they order wraps, we want to put a wrap offer in front. I said order, but I meant to say offer. Is that the right way to think about it?
Well, it's not just that. It's first, deciding what is your philosophy and do you target people with the product that they have previously liked and they're most likely to enjoy again. So that's one piece of it, and that's what I generally recommend, as opposed to trying to push them something new they haven't tried before. Like once they're in, they'll figure it out, but you're probably going to have a better success if you advertise a product that they have previously purchased.
Yep.
Because they've shown there's a history of them liking acai bowls.
Yep.
So there is that, but it's not just to the lapsed customers. It's for any types of communications, right? If you're advertising free delivery today, well, advertise this to me with acai bowl and to Abhinav with whatever you happen to like, smoothie. Right. So it's making sure that you lead with the right product and you feature the right product as often as possible. And yes, of course, sometimes you can digress into the LTO or something that requires an additional push because of inventory challenges, but you predominantly focus on things that the guest, based on their known purchasing history, is most likely to engage with.
Yep. Got it. And that's not just product in terms of menu standpoint, but something you said there was even by channel, meaning like if they're a delivery customer, the messaging, the copy, the creative should feature delivery as well. If they're an
Uh,
in-store guest or a drive-through guest, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so ideally, you want to personalize not just based on the product. Like product would be fun. First, you start with RFM, recency, frequency, and monetary. So you
Yep.
bucket them based on that. So and that's most platforms allow you to do it, but a lot of restaurants don't actually utilize even that basic segmentation fully. The next step from that, I would say, for most clients would be product propensity. And then the
Yep.
next step after that is channel preference. So if
Got it.
Abhinav opens SMS and Olga is unsubscribed from SMS or never opens it and she looks at her email, you don't want to ping Olga too much to the channel she doesn't like. You want to
Yep.
focus on the one that she uses. And then maybe if there's no response, you try another channel, but you try to hit them on the channels they care about.
Yep. Yep. Got it. Got it. And then when people say they can't afford to personalize at that level, because, like from our perspective, it doesn't seem that difficult in the sense that like you can use Vicky segmentation and you can build a segment of guests who are late and it'll be personalized based on if they come weekly or monthly. And then of course, like we know the ROI is there. Like we see it when
Mhm.
someone personalizes based on RFM and they personalize an offer or a message based on wrap versus smoothie. Like there's a 3x lift in the conversion rate of
Yeah,
that campaign,
yeah.
But so if the ROI is there, why do people still feel like they can't afford to personalize to that level? I guess what can't they afford? And is that just a technology thing or is it a people thing? And then, second thing is like, what's the inhibitor, even if they have those things in place?
Yeah, so the limitations, it's mostly human resources and some technology. So some of it is project management, right? So even if you look at, like, let's say, personalizing those lapsed user campaigns, somebody has to go in and decide, okay, how many buckets are we going with? So are we
Right.
segmenting them by drink preference, segmenting them by main course? So how do we split it up? So then you have to measure all those segments, decide which ones are worth dealing with. Then let's say you said, okay, I got 15 different product propensity segments or a cross section of product propensity and let's say monetary. Then you have to come up with different content for all those people. And it may not be super different, but it has to be different because there's no point in putting them
Different
into a
enough.
different segment and then send them the exact same thing again. You could have just as well sent one message to everyone, right? So and
Yeah.
then so you get through the and if you want to send them differentiated offers in addition to messages, then you get into the whole workflow of setting up those offers, testing those offers. So it quickly becomes fairly overwhelming. And then even if you manage to do all that, then you have to go back in and measure the outputs.
Measure the ROI. Yeah.
And you have to prove that the ROI of doing 12 campaigns versus one was actually, it did better. And in some cases, you'll see that you run it and it actually doesn't do any better. And it doesn't mean it's never
Hmm.
going to work. It means you probably didn't do something quite right this time around. So you got to experiment and do it a couple times until sometimes, often you get the ROI right away. But often you
Yeah.
do it like, didn't work as expected. And it was so much work and you give up.
Right.
And then you try again 2 years later and all the personalization opportunities were out the window during that time.
Right. And I guess that's why, going on to our next slide, I think that's why you say most people end up settling for this. This still surprises me. In our survey, I think we had 70% of people who do either no segmentation or only one variable, meaning like day since last visit or preferred location. I feel like your stats are even more stark, where it's like literally 75% are just Batch and blast. Is that
Most,
literally?
most of the
Yeah.
time. The question was most of the time.
Understood.
So
Got
it
it.
means they
Yep.
will have
Yep.
some targeted campaigns. Usually they'll have like journeys that trigger daily running in a segmented way. But then the majority of messaging that is just like ad hoc messaging just goes to everybody. And I've heard from brands that say, well, if we can send it to everybody, why would we segment? And then when you are
Right.
as a consumer, you are on the receiving end of it. It's like, why am I getting my
Why did they segment? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, why am I getting all this advertising from Gap about crop tops? I
Right.
will never bought
Right.
one, never will buy one. I have boys, won't happen. Why am I getting this? Don't send it to me. Send
Right.
me something that I care about.
Right.
Mom jeans. So
Yeah. Right. Right. And then is your definition of batch and blast here is literally, hey, take one message and send it to the entire distribution list.
yeah,
Is
pretty
that
much
just?
the entire distance. I would say, like to me, just one message to the whole active database is also batch and blast. So
Yep.
if it's only actives or if it's all signed up, to me, both of those are batch and blast. Um,
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. And then what is the definition of targeted here? Is that even is targeted? Hey, people who ordered this an LTO previously, or people who previously ordered this specific menu item or this specific LTO, we want to let them know that this LTO is coming out as well, or is that your definition of targeted, or is it even more granular than that?
well, no, like here, targeted basically means the opposite of batch and blast, where
Yeah.
you have a segment that is not just active or just the entire database, where you're selecting guests into a segment for a reason, whether it being regional or it being guests that showed propensity towards certain product, or lapsed guests, so those types of campaigns.
Yeah. And so zooming out, it sounds like the problems with people want to personalize, but the blockers to personalization are unclear what the ROI is, technically difficult, process-wise difficult because of the variations in content development, which kind of brings me to the last piece on our personalization exploration here is it feels like all those things can be solved with AI. Why are people optimistic that yes, AI can solve this? And if they are optimistic about AI being able to solve it, why aren't they deploying it as
Mhm.
aggressively to solve, what feels like a hair on fire personalization problem?
Yeah, so it's really funny because the consensus from the interviews was that the vast majority of people I spoke to are super excited about deploying AI to solve these types of problems and very, very optimistic about it. But at the same time, when you ask them, like, would you let AI just make decisions for you? Virtually everybody says, "Oh no, it's not ready yet." So
Right.
to me, that was highly entertaining because like this is the
Yeah.
future, but we're not quite ready for it.
Right.
There's
Right.
a long section on the study about what is everybody dreaming about and why they're afraid to actually deploy it. And I'm a little bit with them, a little bit with them. I think that just letting it completely loose on your database, I would be very, very scared to do that. But I think that intelligent professionals who know the database and the brand supervising an AI tool will actually get you to the right place soon enough. But
Mm,
I also think that as we talked about all of those challenges of personalization, when we talk about how difficult it is to really properly personalize, it's difficult when you do it for the first time, or maybe the first two times. When you run that cycle two or three times, it's actually not that hard. It's just hard to get started because it feels overwhelming. And I think once you've run it two or three times manually, you can start figuring out how you apply AI so you can do it faster in a
yeah.
way that makes sense for your brand. And then maybe eventually from there, you would be able to transition to, not maybe, definitely in the future, you would be able to transition to much more automated AI campaigns. But you can't, just like with segmentation, you can't go from all signed up campaigns to fully segmented database marketing in a couple of weeks. It's multiple years of practice and discipline to get you there. It just you don't
Right.
you and there's a learning curve for the organization, and you can't just skip it.
Yeah. I mean, of these quotes with me where it's like, hey, if the segment doesn't have at least 10 to 40,000 people, it's not worth the resources even. To your point of just like, now, I mean, that's for a concept that's over 350 units. Maybe that does that number scale down? Meaning if you are smaller, I feel like it shouldn't, but if you're smaller, the size of segment shouldn't really impact like the perceived ROI of targeting them, right? Like at the end of the day, you want to run campaigns on groups that are large enough to move the needle for the business. And so it kind of doesn't matter like what size concept you are.
Yeah.
Again, it's like more so just the level of segment.
It doesn't quite matter, but what matters is what is your cost of deploying those campaigns. So if you can quickly generate creative, if you have a good process for getting your campaign scheduled, if you have a reasonably automated analytics approach, then you can absolutely do that because your cost of running an incremental campaign is, I don't know, $50, $70, $100. And it's worth it. But if your cost of running an incremental campaign, like some examples of the brands I work with, where each email has to be designed by the agency and go through multiple approval processes, just getting another campaign out is a couple $1,000 at least. So for a small brand, it adds up because many of those micro segmentation campaigns don't move the needle by a couple $1,000. They move the needle by a couple hundred or maybe 500. So
Right. Yeah. I think what you're calling out here, and we're going to jump into the ROI section in a second here. What you're calling out here is like, what is the fully loaded cost of the program?
Yep.
What is the fully loaded cost of the campaign, essentially?
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense. Cool. I'm going to turn off screen share mode real quick. I'm going to jump in and see if there are any questions here. A couple of chats. Yes, Bettina, you will get, Riley already commented. Yes, you will get a recording. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to go back into screen share. A reminder again, now we're going to jump into the ROI section, which was the meatiest portion for me.
Type the question.
Yeah, jump them in. Exactly. Don't be shy. Just throw them in there. Cool. I'm going to jump back into some of the slides here. And let's see. Great. Now let's talk about ROI. Can you, for the folks zooming out here, I'm going to paraphrase your study, but it feels like a couple things. One is it's super hard to measure ROI. Like something we saw in our loyalty survey was the majority of people we surveyed believe that their loyalty program had a positive ROI, but close to 50% said they couldn't measure it. So the belief was there, but the ability to measure it was not. That's one. Two is brands don't trust the vendor's definition of ROI, maybe because it excludes that fully loaded cost. And three, the lack of in-store data or let's say pre and post loyalty data makes it difficult to calculate ROI. I'm paraphrasing, but I feel like those are the three big buckets here. And then in that lens, maybe walk us through like what is the measurement maturity matrix? How should we think about this? And when someone cracks open that 70 slide report and they spend time on this particular slide, how should they think about how should someone think about where they are, where they want to be, what does it take to get to the next level, etc.?
Yeah, so I think I will start from the bottom and go up. So the enterprise brands that we spoke to, they generally have a very good knowledge of the program ROI. They are measuring it themselves. They are not trusting the vendor number on how the program is performing. And what they typically do, they measure the program both at the campaign level and on the overall program level. And that's done with control groups, both campaign-specific control groups and universal control groups. So over time, they look at how are the people that we exclude from communications, how do they behave compared to the guests that are getting all the communications. And so they do it for both campaign level and program level. And then they can tell, hey, overall program value is such, an individual campaign contribution is, you can measure it precisely. And if you put solid analytics resources, looking at all of these campaigns that you run, you can actually tweak them very effectively. And you just quickly stop the campaigns that are not productive and don't do that again. You also test.
And not productive means no incrementality.
Usually it means no incrementality. It's in most cases the brands are looking for incremental sales. And no matter what you hear about the overall goals, the goal is incremental profitable sales. That's what everybody's after.
Yep.
Not usually it's not engagement and some not acquisition for sake of acquisition, with some exceptions. Usually everybody is after incremental profitable, not just incremental, but profitable incremental sales, because that's not exactly the same thing. Can be different. And the enterprise brands tend to have access to like what I call here the tokenized data stitching, where they can look at their non-loyalty, not very trackable guests, and understand how those perform compared to the loyalty guests that they're able to track. And that also bridges the gap between the guests that should be trackable but are not because they forgot to sign in or something happened. So it actually tracks transactions for guests that are receiving communications but are not being recorded as loyalty guests in the normal loyalty system. So that's what happens on the enterprise level. On the what we call emerging brands, smaller brands level, what typically happens, there is just a bunch of promotions and there is a program, the program that is running with the strategy that was picked because it looks similar to what a big guy is doing. So initially the strategy was like, well, the Chipotle can be wrong, Starbucks can be wrong if we're a coffee shop, Chipotle can be wrong if we're a taco or burrito shop. So we just copy that. And it's in many cases, it's not a bad approach. You don't have to always reinvent the wheel. But what happens with smaller brands is that because they don't measure the impact of the program structure impact through the universal control or individual campaign impact, it's very hard for them to tell if it's actually doing anything good for them or not. And that's why they tend to be the most dissatisfied because they just don't know. So and then the mid-tier folks are kind of somewhere in between. Usually they don't do universal holdouts, but they often will do control groups within that. If their platform allows to do it easily, they very often will measure campaigns individually, and they'll see the contribution from those campaigns. Having said that, just having control groups set is not enough, because you also have to go back and look at what happened and interpret the results, and then make adjustments to your plan based on what happened with the campaign. And there is a discipline and process associated with that, and a lot of disturbance because it may change.
It sounds hard. It sounds hard also, as you describe it. Like, that's the other piece too. It's like, if I think about, again, like the marketers or the brands that we work with, it's like you are relatively under the gun to deliver results, I guess, regardless of environment. And so like going back and measuring and building like thoughtful, analytical, rigorous processes, it just feels, I think it feels hard to a lot of folks as well.
It is hard. So it's a question of the scale, right? So if you're dealing with 100,000 people database, and if you optimize it to the nth degree, maybe you'll get just a little bit incrementality out of it. Probably not worth it. When you have 4 or 5 plus million people in your database active, it makes a huge difference. It's worth it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I'll up into kind of what you're talking about here, where it's like true holistic incrementality is rarely measured outside of enterprise brands, because folks don't have tokenized data. Folks don't have the ability to do kind of universal or global holdouts. And something you called out elsewhere.
Global holdouts are not that hard to do at all, and that's what drives me crazy. Between we can hold something not very easily, and I believe you guys can measure it very easily. It just
Well, you transition well into the next one. I mean, you transition next, and I'm like, aside from the comment on CDP, which obviously, like, as a CDP, I'm very appreciative of, I think the thing that really jumped out to me was this idea of 2x to 3x, where again, it's like we go back to what we were talking about around product propensity and using even basic RFM on segmentation. It's like the lift in conversion rate from slight personalization makes it the ROI worth it. Again, with the caveat that, of course, the segment needs to be big enough. You need to not have too many layers of approval and all that. But the reason I love this chart is you are an independent sort of qualified observer that spends your life in loyalty programs and in thinking about customer data. And so like I was excited to see this, where it's like, if you can measure it, you can see a 2x to 3x lift from when a guest is not in the loyalty program and then opts into loyalty program. And excuse me, this 2x to 3x, is that lifetime value, or is that's annual spend, right? As you call that here,
So
right?
that's basically annual spend, yeah. So this is like
Yep.
the 12 months before they enrolled in the program versus 12 months after. You see them spending about double or more generally. And again, this goes back again to the chicken and egg problem. So did they decide, yes, I like this place, I'm gonna go more, and then they enrolled?
And then opt
Or
in. Yeah.
is it like the fact that they enrolled, like, yeah, I see this on my screen all the time, I'm getting push notifications, I guess I'm gonna show up more now, and then next thing you know, you have double spend. So we don't know like the full correlation
The
causation isn't
causation. Yeah.
there, but it is pretty clear that something something important is happening there for whatever
Right.
reason. Once they enroll, they show up a lot more. So
Right. But I think what it calls out is the point where it's like, okay, you probably have buckets of guests. You probably have large buckets of guests. I'm curious for your take on this. You probably have large buckets of guests who learn to love the brand and decide to opt into the program. And there's certainly a correlation effect there. You probably have another large bucket that comes sporadically and is like, I'm never going to opt in. It's just if I'm driving by one or if I'm in the mood once in a while, if my kids want it, I'll get it. But there's a group of guests in the middle where it is probably worth spending your time and effort to get the marginal guest into the program, because if you do, you can see a 2 to 3x increase in annual spend after they enter the program. Is that a
yeah.
good way to think about it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. And a great example of this third group is actually my husband,
Okay.
who runs out. He runs out to get every time he gets like crushed by the meetings and he doesn't have time to even make his own sandwich. He runs out to get a sandwich somewhere.
Yeah.
So places that he enrolled into, yes, stress eating. Well, he's also hungry. It is lunch. And I'll be on a webinar like this, and I can't make him his sandwich even if the ingredients are in the fridge. So he has signed up for few dozen, well, I think it's a little over a dozen loyalty programs that do lunch sandwiches within a short distance from us. And when they send them an offer or even a compelling message, he he runs out, and he won't
Yeah.
run out unless there is a message or an offer. Usually, no, it needs to be an offer. And if he did not get those communications, these guys would not be on his radar. Maybe he would drive by
Yeah.
once a year, but now he checks them out once a month. So here's a
Right.
very, very good example. And it's not an emotional connection. It's more about convenience and reliability and knowing like he can order on the app. It's going to be ready when he pulls up. He doesn't need to drop off his conference call while he's going to get that sandwich. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
so
I think that's a good way. Just putting it in human terms, I think that's a good way to think about it.
yeah,
And
I know
then
you're
just
not,
so we're
you're not alone in that. So there
no,
are
I'm the same way. I'll be at the office. I'm like, oh God, I don't have time. And then I'll literally pull up an app of the spot around the corner from me, and I'll just be like, great, like hit the reorder button and go pick it up, and it's super easy.
Well, and it's slightly off topic, but still interesting. So what we were talking, because we both have been messing with Claude
Yeah,
Code over the last few
yeah.
days, and he thinks that his test project for it is going to be to develop a script that will pull his sandwich options for a day based on the emails he received in the morning to identify the best offer based on combination of value and distance. Uh,
Honestly, that's a great test project. I love that actually. Um,
Well, we'll see if he actually delivers on that. But that was his
yeah.
concept of a test project.
That's right. I mean, yeah. I mean, you could just give Claude or ChatGPT access to your email and literally ask it the question. Pull me all the offers that I received this morning from restaurant brands near me. Tell me
All
which
the
one is the
active
most
offers that
compelling.
are currently
Yeah.
still active.
Yes. 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 That's great. I love that. So to your
We'll
point,
see
like
that.
that is the value of marketing to the marginal guest.
Yeah, but
As we
then
were
in
saying
that
earlier.
case, those brands, like once he does that, if it happens, and even now, those are the brands that are in his consideration set for lunch. He doesn't even think about
Right.
anybody else because why would he?
Right. 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 Well, this is great. So I'm going to zip ahead here because we've got like 5 minutes before we get into questions.
Yeah, and I actually do have at 2 o'clock, so I will have to drop off at 2.
No problem. No problem. This one, apologize. It looks like our transition from PowerPoint to Canva didn't work out quite well here. Yeah, but like at a high level, talk about like what is the actionable insight? What is the diamond that's what are people looking for here? And what actually bridges the data warehousing and marketing execution? Like, what is the
Yeah.
thing that people are looking for when it comes to insight and marketing
Well,
execution?
people are still looking for magic, right? People are still looking for how do you take those mountains of data that we currently have and convert it into insights that you can actually use for marketing. And it's a real challenge because the data tells you what happened, it doesn't tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And the AI tools that are now processing all of that data, they do tell you what to do, but you don't always trust it because you don't always believe that they
Mm,
have the full context.
yeah.
So
What is some of that context? What is some of that context that you feel like people or that AI is missing? That that human element, I guess, when it comes to taking the recommendation.
yeah, I don't know if it's really the human element. I think some of it is just knowledge that AI doesn't have the full context, operational and environmental. AI doesn't know it's been hailing here in Austin, or it doesn't know that the weather's been horrible. It doesn't know if there's any major concerts or political events, rallies,
Mm,
God knows what. So it doesn't
mm,
take that. So it can make decisions that are just don't fit with the environment for a specific location, a specific area at a given point in time. Because our systems are not hooked up to the news, and they are not designed to process what's happening in the news. That's
yeah.
one piece. Another one, and it's a pretty big one, it's the inventory and labor. AI systems are not currently not aware of how much of a certain product you have in stock. You gotta
Right.
say you have way too much
Right.
steak, it's running out. Or the other way around, they will promote something that is almost out of stock because they just don't know.
Yeah.
So things like that. So there was a lot of context in there.
Yeah.
That's just missing. Humans can miss it too, but if it's really important, they probably won't because it's top of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's probably, as you said, there's context around store level P&Ls or the CFO saying we want to get the discount rate down. There's all these sort of, non or the elements that live outside of the hard data associated with a particular offer, campaign, initiative,
Mhm.
etc. That probably the operator needs to keep in mind
Mhm.
when they're building and planning and
Yeah.
some of these
And
campaigns.
I
Yeah.
think it's also just the recommendation itself doesn't have a value unless there is trust in that recommendation.
Yeah.
It's the exact same message, which may be exact correct message coming from the person you trust, comes across and lands very differently than when it comes from just an unknown entity, even if it has had all your data. So
Yeah.
I think we'll bridge that trust gap at some point as we use AI more and more, or maybe it's going to get worse. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. I
Maybe
mean,
we'll be
who
like,
knows? Yeah,
what, this thing doesn't know anything half
yeah,
the time.
my sense is it gets worse before it gets better. The reason I say that is you are in this mode, like when we talk to obviously brands about our AI capabilities, and people are like, yeah, like I trust you, I trust the data, I trust what you guys do with the data, and so when I ask a question, I know that from a data standpoint, I'm going to get a good, reasonable answer, and I can marry that with the context in my head and make a decision. But we have people on our team who are not users of Bitkey, or they don't have access, or we have franchisees who are uploading POS data into Claude or ChatGPT, and they're coming to me with suggestions of here's what our local store marketing plan should be. And great, it has context of their store level sales, but it's also like hallucinating things like the reason our catering sales are down is because Dr. So and so doesn't order anymore. Dr. So and so was neither a client, number one, and two, when you Google him, Dr. So and so doesn't actually exist. And so it's like
Yeah,
AI is
yeah,
filling in the gaps
that's true.
essentially. And still, yeah, as good as the models are, and I know that this is the worst it'll ever be, as good as the models are, there's still this gap between, I would say like trusted data that you can run AI on
Mhm.
and DIY data analytics and what the LLMs can solve for. So I
Yeah,
think, like I said, I think it gets worse before it gets better because that problem is being magnified across locations, across headquarters, across
mhm,
stakeholders, etc.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we're
Um,
very very short on time at that point,
we
so
got 10 minutes left. I'm happy to take any questions in the chat here. I have two more for Olga, but happy to take any questions if you have them. Drop them in drop them in the questions box, drop them in the chat box, and we'll fire away here. But Olga, if we zoom out and we think about like the industry being competitive, and I think people are willing to send out discounts, but they are worried about the slippery slope. How do you even think about like what is a good discount rate for a brand, especially in this environment? What are the things that it depends on? Are there any good like benchmarks to think about it?
That's not a tough question. What's a good discount rate? Like, are you talking about the discount rate associated with the base program? Are you talking about ad hoc discount rate?
Let's say base program. Let's say base
So
program. Keep it
so the
simple.
base program, I learned just earlier this year that the base, like we call it the funding rate, the base discount program for non-restaurant loyalty programs like airlines and hotels is actually about 1%.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Versus what we typically see like 5 years ago, 10 to 12% was normal. And now
Wow.
brands are trying to kind of get it down. Like we recommend between 4.5 to 6.
Okay.
So for the base program discount rate, we've been trying to help the clients kind of trim it down to less and less for a number of reasons. But I think more important than, no, actually, I'll take it back. Not more important than the discount rate, as important as a discount rate is getting on the journey of targeting your discounts. Because the worst thing you can do is send discounts to people that don't need discounts.
Yeah.
It's really makes a huge difference when you optimize your messaging and your offers, so that people that will come in anyway will just come in, and people that need a couple bucks off, they will show up with a couple bucks off, and then people that need a significant discount to get them through the door actually get that discount.
Yeah.
So I would focus on that, but I also think we are definitely living in an environment where counting on predominantly emotional connection for driving traffic is a little bit naive. So just based on what's happening in
Interesting.
the
Why do
economy.
you say that?
Because historically, from everything we've seen, guests respond better to offers and discounts than to messaging, branding, and messaging. And this is, I'm pretty sure that anybody who's on the call right now, when they think about their own behavior, the immediate reaction that you get from an offer or discount is always stronger than from just a general messaging. And when the economy is tight, it is very hard to get immediate feedback, immediate sales response based on attempts to build emotional connection alone. It's super important, but it doesn't give you immediate sales changes, and everybody wants to change immediately changes.
Interesting. Is that true just in this environment or in any environment?
I think unfortunately it's kind of true in most environments, but it's particularly when the guests when you see the economic struggles, you see the guests over $5 and all the inflation in the grocery stores. That's when discounts unfortunately matter more. And I would love to market based on emotional connection. I would love to be able to do just that. It just when you want immediate results, which a lot of our clients want immediate results and measurable
Yeah.
results.
Everybody everybody wants more sales yesterday. Yeah, I get it.
Yes,
I guess.
and it's very, very hard to accomplish that by just focusing on branding and emotional connection with a brand.
Yeah.
But you have to
But when
build
we talk
brand over
about
time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I guess that's fair. You can't sacrifice, I guess, one for the other. But to your point, I guess what is a good offer? And when we say offers, I feel like we're opening Pandora's box. Offers can mean many things. What performs in your recent experience super well right now? Is it straight like $5 off a purchase of Y or more? Is it percentage wise? Is it free side? Is it like what if you're like stack ranking the promotions that you feel like do drive the highest ROI or incrementality? What stands out?
I think it differs. It differs by the brand. It also differs by the database. How well the database, how well your guests know your brand, how engaged they are. So that
Mm,
changes the equation a little bit. In like the very, very broad strokes, yeah, dollars off works very well. It works better for the brand if you actually introduce minimum spend and you don't just throw dollars off in the offer. In most, not always, but in most campaigns that we have run, percentage off has performed worse than dollars off, partly because people are not good at math, And so it's a calculation you have to make, and 25% off. You gotta do a calculation in your head, but also many times it happens that the guests don't actually know what the real price is, so they don't know what's the base. You got to take 25% off.
Yeah.
So this is like gross generalization on offers, but one thing
It
that I do know,
depends. Yeah.
yeah, if you do send a targeted offer, mentioning particularly in the subject line, if it's an email, the product that is preferred by the guest, you're gonna get higher engagement, higher click through, and higher conversion for that type of offer.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what is the threshold at which that triggers or starts the brand down the slippery slope of basically cheapening the brand and associating it more with discounts though?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I
Yeah. Well,
don't
let
think
me
it's
let me take it this way. Let's say if you're devising the campaign strategy, how many of those kinds of emails do you recommend sending per week, month? You pick the right time frame for you.
it is hard to say because you need to look at the baseline. And again, my
Yeah.
recommendation would always be like go on, segment your database, because there will be people in your database that don't need those offers at all. Because
Yes.
when you
Yes.
say like how many of these, you presume it's going to everybody. It shouldn't be.
It
It
shouldn't.
shouldn't be. There are people that should be receiving, like my husband who's about to write a script to get the cheapest sandwich nearby. So send him those. Please send him those sandwiches because you're not gonna get him in any other way. So, but
Yeah.
then there's also
And we've
me who's
seen.
like, I feel like this today, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
go because I got some free time.
Yeah, and we've seen this too, like in our segmentation, where people will say, "Hey, I want to use people who used any offer related to the chicken
Yep.
sandwich," right? And like to our point around AI, you can type that in to Vicky, and it'll build the segment, and it'll pull every offer associated with a chicken sandwich, and then you could say, "Great, like those are the people that need a chicken sandwich offer. I'm going to send it to them." Versus maybe
Mhm.
I'll just do, if I carve them out, I will do broader chicken sandwich related messaging to the rest of my database because one segment probably needs the offer, another segment doesn't. So
I see a
um,
question from Kevin.
yeah, I was gonna say last one here, and then we'll wrap up. But what have you seen work best to drive new signups for loyalty?
So I'm a big fan of in-store promotions because guests that are already inside the four walls are more likely to convert into loyalty guests long term. Not
Yeah,
a fan of teasing them around the internet through social media, trying to get them to sign up. I'm also a huge fan of using your online ordering channel as a way to convert guests. So give them an option, or maybe even automatically opt them in, or give them a chance to opt out into your loyalty program. But overall, um, generally, popular free items are the best way to get people into the program. And as
love it.
always, we recommend putting in minimum spend so it's not unprofitable for you. And the minimum spend can be pretty high if you're giving, let's say, an appetizer or maybe a drink that you normally charge $5 or $6 for. It's worth it as long as you have a minimum spend and they don't just grab the item and run.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think, to echo what you said, I remember speaking with Courtney Maxidon at Kahala Brands, and I think they tested this with Cold Stone. I don't know if I'm going to get the number exactly right, but so I won't say the number because I'll probably get it wrong. But the takeaway is they ran several tests around getting loyalty opt-ins on social media, through online ordering. The by far highest ROI way that they found to generate loyalty signups and ensure repeat loyalty guest behavior was getting the frontline teammates to actually get the
Yep.
guest to opt in at point of
Yep.
purchase.
Yep.
And so leveraging your frontline team, to your point, when they're inside the four walls already, they're already a guest, they're already about to
Mhm.
pay for their food. Getting them to sign up at point of purchase or shortly after purchase
Yep.
is the
Well,
best
while
is the
while
best
they're
way to create.
waiting for their food at the table in case of
Yeah,
casual dining.
yeah,
So
that's right.
that's the way to
That's
do
right.
it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Olga, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you putting the study together and taking us on a very brief tour of everything that you've uncovered. Please reach out to Olga directly to get the study. I assure you it's well worth your time. And if
Yeah.
you're watching this live or the recording,
And Abhinav froze for me, or did I freeze for everybody? So I don't know if anybody can hear me. I put my email in there, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. I'll respond to everyone.
Sorry, I got a note that my internet went down very briefly,
Okay,
but
so
yes,
you
please.
looked very frozen, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Reach out to me or reach out to Olga. I assure you the full report is worth your time, and I'm happy to pass along to anybody as well.
Thank you. I
Thank
got to
you.
jump
Thank
on
you,
my
everybody.
next call. Thank you.
Appreciate
Bye.
it. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.